So let's get right into it so I can hopefully protect you from most of these, or at least make you aware of them when you go through the transaction. So what's number one? Down payment. You might think it's pretty straightforward. Your down payment is only what you have. But the fact of the matter is there's all sorts of options with the down payment. And what are the impacts of putting less or more down? This is a question that you need to have with your mortgage broker to make sure that your down payment amount reflects your goals in the entire transaction. Down payment, research it. Number two, an appraisal. The fact of the matter is someone's going to loan you some money to buy your house, and they're going to use that house as security if you don't pay. So they're going to want to make sure that the value of that place is worth what the purchase agreement and everybody else says it is. So an appraisal is usually done by a third-party, independent, professional company, and it's paid for by sometimes the lender, sometimes the client, even sometimes the broker. But really important piece of information to make sure the property is worth what everyone says it's worth. Number three, home inspection. I mentioned before that this is the biggest debt you're ever going to have in your entire life. So you want to make sure that whatever the asset is that's secured to it is in good shape. You want to make sure the roof's not going to collapse, or all sorts of things that could happen. So get a professional to do a home inspection to make sure your asset is everything you want it to be. Number four, lender and broker fees. Now, we don't see this a ton in the conventional world. Most people don't have to pay lender or broker fees. However, second mortgages, commercial real estate, all those things seem to have some sort of fees attached to it. So before you get into a transaction, talk to your broker and just ask them what sort of fees apply to the lender and to the broker, and they'll disclose that to you up front so you can be aware. Number five, legal fees. In British Columbia, your property has to be registered by a notary or a lawyer. The difference between the two is that a lawyer can give you legal advice and a notary just witnesses signatures. So who you use, quite frankly, is up to you. There used to be a time there was a huge parity in price between a notary and a lawyer, but that's not the case anymore. I find that good lawyers are about the same price as a good notary. Number six, property tax. Now this one's a little odd for only one reason, where it's charged. See, property tax in British Columbia is actually charged in the middle of the year, in July. So if you buy your house and move into it from July 1st and on, you're actually going to owe the old seller a little bit of property tax because they've already paid the full year. The flip side is if you move in May, that person that you bought the property from is going to owe you some property transfer tax. Now don't worry, this isn't something that you have to collect. It's all arranged by the lawyer. And in fact, when you buy a property, you can feel free to ask your lawyer how much the property tax is going to be and how that's going to shape up. But important to know because that will be a cost that will have to come to you at the lawyer's office when you close. Number seven, probably the biggest one of all, property transfer tax. This is one that second-time home buyers always forget because most of them were exempt when they bought their first house. Property transfer tax is based on the size of the property and the amount of the price of the property. This one's key because it can cost up to $15,000, $20,000. It can greatly affect where you put your down payment. So when you're thinking about buying a property, even before you think of selling your property, you need to talk to either your real estate agent or your mortgage broker and find out what that number is going to be so that way you can plan accordingly. Number eight, realtor fees. Now, what's neat to note about realtor fees is realties are generally only paid for by the seller of a property. So therefore, if you're buying, you have no realtor fees to be paid on. Now, realtors do have some fluctuation in how they charge their fees, and it has to do with sometimes experience, has to do with services provided. So important to note to talk to your realtor and ask them what fees will be appropriate for your transaction. Finally, the one no one wants to talk about these days, and that's HST. The bottom line is HST is charged on new property and new property only. So for the 90% of transactions that are just someone buying and selling an existing property, it doesn't apply. Now the calculation for HT gets complicated, so again, I strongly suggest you do talk to your lawyer and ask them what the HST is and how much of that HST you can even apply to your mortgage, or do you have to pay some of it up front. So let's recap all of the closing costs we've talked about today. Number one, down payment. Number two, appraisal. Number three, inspection. Number four, lender and broker fees. Number five, legal fees. Number six, property tax. Number seven, property transfer tax. Number eight, realtor fees. And number nine, HST. I hope you found this interesting, and I hope it better prepared you for any of the costs that can come up in a real estate transaction. If you've enjoyed it and you know someone that might need to know this, pass it on. Share